Well, it's about that time that we've reached Wukong. He is the hero everybody loves to hate, but secretly enjoys playing a lot. A lot of people think he should just be removed from the game. However, it's almost obligatory for a MOBA to have Wukong in some iteration in the game. And, well, this is simply my rework idea for the guy. Yeah, hello ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a hero rework video idea. I am Sylphin. Again, few things to remember. This is my idea only. My idea, that is it. This does not represent what Unleashed Games is going to do in any way. Just my own personal idea. 2, hero passives are coming back. We have to think of a passive that suits the hero and their gameplay niche. 3, I like the idea of what I'm calling quest mechanics, or Paragon mechanics. What they are is, if you do something that defines the hero's purpose well, then that purpose gets emboldened and you're able to do it better, faster, stronger, all that sort of stuff. 4, I think that hero design has to be based around strong hero gameplay niches. There has to be a strong purpose for you to go, aha, I need Wukong in this game because of these reasons, because he's great at this, not weak in these areas, etc., etc. There has to be strong reasons for you to pick a hero in the draft lobby, or else there's no reason for having different heroes. There's no reason. So, what is that with Wukong? In my opinion, he's a high mobility melee ADC. Based around clones, jumping everywhere, high mobility, super high mobility, melee ADC. That's him with this sort of clone theme that he has in every single iteration pretty much. So, how do we do that? How do we rely on that and emphasize that in his kits, in his kit and rework? Again, this is just my own personal idea. His passive. The basic attack movement speed penalty is reduced by 20, 30, 40, 50% if Wukong is in offensive stance, while Wukong gains 4, 6, 8, 10% movement speed in evasive stance. So, if you are in offensive stance, the penalty that you take to your movement speed during your basic attack animation is cut by 20, 30, 40, 50%, enabling Wukong to attack a target and not get penalized in the mobility department too much. So in this scenario right here that you're watching, if the Twin Blast decided to run away, Wukong would have a bit more time to hit his basic attacks on him as he's running away. It's not removed completely, because melee attacking any hero that's trying to run away is completely bonkers. At least that melee attack, basic attack penalty is reduced by a certain amount. In evasive stance, well, you just get flat movement speed buff, so you can engage, disengage, etc., etc. It's pretty simple. Really relying on his high mobility theme, accentuating that, while also empowering his ability to do his thing, and that is being a melee ADC, dealing damage at melee range. That's his whole purpose, so he needs to be focused around that, and that's why that passive exists. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of that. I mean, it kind of suits the guy. It kind of suits his whole theme, especially this kind of ADC Wukong instead of kind of like a bruiser-y Wukong that's in Smite. So, Cloudwalker is, and remember, he's all stance-based, so each ability is really complicated. Stick with me. Is very similar to what he was before, just with a couple of key differences. Cloudwalker, it now has an active. I've chosen to make every ability an active ability. One is just a stance switch, but that is, you can't get away from that. Cloudwalker, there's an active part. Active. Wukong spawns a path of clouds that lasts for 1.75 seconds, or however long he was able to walk on top of the clouds, however long. He's able to spawn a path of clouds that lasts for 1.75 seconds. That is the active part. It's tied to the cooldown in the passive. So after 1.75 seconds, if you don't double jump, it goes on cooldown. However, you can't even use that path of clouds anyways, because it's in order to walk on that path of clouds, you have to be in evasive stance. So, passive. Wukong can jump a second time with a 16, 15, 14, 13 second cooldown. In offensive stance, the second jump ends with 300 unit slam, like it used to, dealing ability damage, and applies 32, 35, 38, 41% movement speed, slow for 2.5 seconds. Maybe that has to be tweaked, but forget numbers. In evasive stance, the second jump grants a 20, 25, 30, 35% movement speed boost, a little bit more than it used to, for 1 second. So, and after hitting heroes 15 times, Wukong spawns a clone when double jumping that mimics his actions for 3 seconds, deals no damage. So, sorry, I misspoke before. You're able to walk on the path of clouds in either stance. You're able to walk on the path of clouds in either stance. What happens is you can jump, and if you time it right, spawn path of clouds and walk on those clouds for a certain distance. Now, if your first jump isn't very high, so those path of clouds not really going to be useful, but you can do that over some stairs to get a little bit of elevation for a little bit. You can use it over a ledge to keep some elevation, and then double jump a second time, depending on what kind of stance you're in. You can jump one time. If you time it right, spawn a path of clouds that you can jump onto, run for a little bit, and then choose to jump a second time within 1.75 seconds to then land your slam, or double jump to get a movement speed bonus. So there's an added level of depth to the ability depending on which stance. When you activate the path of clouds, you can double jump and spawn the path of clouds at the end if you are in your evasive stance. So you can jump once, double jump, giving you in evasive stance, giving you the movement speed boost, spawn the path of clouds, and keep going. Or if you want, you can double jump, wait till you drop a little bit for whatever reason, spawn the path of clouds, and then you can walk on those clouds for a little bit. Maybe if you want to stay closer to an enemy that's walking on the ground or something like that. You have options of where you spawn that path, and it's all interconnected. So if you don't spawn the path of clouds, or if you don't double jump, then the whole ability goes on cooldown after the 1.75 seconds. It kind of makes sense. I've added a layer of depth to the ability, so that you can have choices. You're like, where do I want the clouds? If do I want the clouds at all? Do we just want the slam, the buff, blah blah blah? Really, really cool. Controlling and the quest spawns a clone when double jumping that mimics his action for 3 seconds. So if you double jump into, to get away and you path the clouds, another one spawns walking on a path of clouds, and you're like, which one is it? Which one is he? I don't know which one he is. I forgot to add it would spawn just like his ultimate with 50% health. However, this clone doesn't deal damage. This clone doesn't deal damage if you slam. If you jump and then you double jump, spawning the other clone, and then you slam onto the ground, your clone doesn't deal damage. This one doesn't deal damage. It's just there to confuse the enemy. Like, where is this? Where's You know, which one's the real one? You have to hit a few times, and then you can kind of tell. You're like, ah, this one's taking a little bit too much damage. This one's a clone. I'll move over. Plus, you can tell because it won't be dealing any damage. Just there to confuse you. After hitting heroes 15 times, meaning you have to be offensive with the ability in order to get the empowered state through the quest. Because, and why hit enemy heroes? Because you're in melee ADC. The point of you is to deal damage, hence why there's that part in that ability. Abilities are complicated, but I think that's what Wukong needs. You know, he shouldn't be a destroy a tower in 1.5 seconds kind of a hero. It needs to be a little bit of a more difficult to play hero, and that's fine. Control aggression, it's basically the same thing. Active, you can toggle between offensive and defensive stats. Wonderful. Passive, 25% chance that Wukong will spot a minion with a spirit. It grants additional bonuses when slain. An offensive stance, you gain bonus gold. Evasive stance, you heal. The heal, I thought of making it a lifesteal for a certain time. If you kill one in evasive stance, you get percentage-based lifesteal for a couple seconds or something like that. Because nobody used it in evasive stance, so maybe it has to be a little bit more relevant. You know, if you want to kill a hero, for example, in evasive stance, maybe you should get something. Maybe it's like I should probably kill this hero in evasive stance. Gives me like 40% lifesteal for 2 seconds or something like a good thing. So like, then you can switch to offensive stance and continue the engagement with a little bit of lifesteal. Maybe. I don't know. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of that. Staff of Legend. This was his staff, well, and what a lot of people hated. Active. Wukong extends his staff and deals ability damage in offensive stance. In offensive stance, units are pushed 900 units away. In evasive stance, but with no stun. There's no stun. No stun. It's just a push away. No stun. In evasive stance, Wukong extends his staff into the ground, pushing himself off for a directional leap in a direction of his choosing. Pretty much the same, just remove that ridiculous stun. Melee ADC with this much movement speed and stuff like that, with the slow already on his Cloudwalker, does not need a stun. People were saying maybe put it so that you can knock into terrain and it can stun. That's maybe a compelling gameplay option. I don't think he needs that, especially with the reduced basic attack movement speed penalty and the bonus movement speed in evasive stance. Now his ultimate was the biggest, it was definitely the biggest problem with him. I've made it an active. He no longer continually spawns clones. Now it's an active. Wukong creates 3 clones of himself that deal 25, 35, 45% basic attack damage. Probably needs to be less, but I do want it to be, it should be impactful and have 50% of his current health upon activation. Current health upon activation. Clones last for 15 seconds and will prioritize the closest enemy hero. Clones do not use abilities and deal 50% less damage to structures, 80, 70, 60% 60-second cooldown. You can see in the late game it's fairly often because it's a key part of him, and that's a key part of his identity, you know, dealing damage, spawning clones, his ability to confuse the enemy, which one's a real Wukong, you know, what's doing damage to me, how much damage is that doing, etc., etc. There you go. The 45% basic attack damage may sound like a lot, but there's only 3 of them. They may not all be attacking the same target. They have 50% of his current health. Visually, the health bar to the enemy, they would all look the same. So if Wukong had half health when he used his ultimate, then each of the clones would appear to have half of their health bar missing, but the health that they would have would be half as much as the Wukong had, right? Do you get what I mean? So that it's not, yeah, they have to be visually identical, but the numbers are just 50% less, if you know what I mean. This gives him the ability to pop his ultimate as a pseudo defensive mechanism, to confuse the enemy, but ultimately to deal that damage. Synergize with his team, a nice Decker cage. You're like, ah, now my clones can really do work. And they would mimic, have good logic and AI. They would do stuff like Wukong does and stuff like that. They do not use abilities, so that is a consideration. Using abilities would be crazy. The pushbacks and jumping around. They would just deal damage and walk around and attack enemies. There's Wukong. He's complicated. Made him a little more complicated, but maybe this works. I like the idea of this ultimate. The 50% less damage to structures is super key, because still, if they do 50% less damage to structures, and say it topped out at 40%, that's 20% additional damage. That's 60% between him and his 3 clones. So he's dealing 160% of his basic attack damage against a structure if it's him and his clones. That's a lot. A carry versus a structure, dealing 160% of their basic attack damage, especially a melee ADC, that deals a little bit more damage than your range carry. That's a lot of damage, period. So again, that might need to be 60-70% less damage to structures. He cannot just walk up to a structure, press his ultimate, and it's deleted. He cannot do that. He will be a naturally good sieger. Yes, split pusher. He will. However, that has to be in there. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of Wukong. Does this sound more reasonable? Would you like to play this guy? The Cloud Walker, that active choosing when you want to spawn the path of clouds and when and which stance you want, stuff like that. What do you think of this? Let me know down in the comments. Please like the video if you like it, dislike, share it with the community, of course, guys. Subscribe if you guys like this content. Hit that bell notification button. And, of course, let me know down in the comments what you guys want to see in the future. Till next time, like always, stay optimistic and positive.